Sunday morning back at my place. You could sleep late, I don't mind. Break some eggs, make a mixtape, and let it play like 20 times. I ain't got no money, but I got lots of time. So let's spend a little, live a little, cause every day the sun will rise. Wake up!
Alright, Konba, what is happening?
Konba, what is happening?
Welcome to the Terrace Up My Heart podcast. That was the amazing Run River North that you just heard with the acoustic version of Wake Up. Tonight we will be covering week 28, Starving for Affection, where things really begin to heat up between Vivi and Rio, and Tupas shows us some of his inner healing issues from his past. I'm your host, Jay Hun, and I am once again joined by my co-hosts Lucy Lee and Daniel Che. And tonight we have a special guest panelist, the second member of the incredible Run River North, also Daniel Che's girlfriend, without whom he would not be here talking about Terrace House in the first place. The very talented Miss Sally Kang. Sally, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Great. I'm great. I'm excited to talk about some Terrace House.
Did you ever think you'd be able to live out your Terrace House panelist dreams in such a poor man's Dollar Tree fashion by being on a makeshift podcast?
Never. It's usually just to Daniel.
Well, yes, we are now living out your best meta Terrace House dreams. So we're awesome. We're glad to have you on and have another female perspective on the show. Also, hello, Lucy.
Hi.
And
I'm
hello,
here.
Dan.
Hey. Today's all about Sally.
Today's all about Sally. So, the icebreaker question of the night for all of us. I prepped you guys and primed you guys to this. Okay, here it is. Wearing your rose-colored glasses, who on the show from any season do you feel like best embodies you in the most idyllic of circumstances if you were to be cast on to the show? And this can be a fusion of different characters. That's the first question. And then second, and I guess like, who would best embody who you hope you'd come off as to the audience? Second question, who's your worst case scenario cast member who you could actually see yourself embodying once you run the playback of the film? Because as we all know, how we perceive ourselves kind of gets shattered on the show once the camera picks up all of our smallest intricacies and blind spots. So does anybody want to go first?
Lucy?
I mean, well, we already talked about this before, Jaehyun.
In person? Yep.
In person, yep. So my answer is still the same. In the best light, I'd like to think I'm Tsubasa, just because she's like down to earth and not a model. Like, I feel like picking anyone else who's like super good looking would just be like, okay, just really full of myself, right? So she seemed like the most normal, personable girl, and I think I just noticed like one instance when she was talking with all the guys, like none of the guys felt uncomfortable around her because she was, just so chill and like easy to talk to. And I'd like to think that that is me in the best light. And in the worst light, it's also from that season, but it would be Yui, the crazy girl at the end. Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, I don't like her, right? And she is still crazy, but there are some instances when she makes facial expressions like, at people that I feel like I do that also unknowingly, and just like maybe obsessing over a guy too much, how she obsessed over Noah. And I kind of could see myself doing that too in my worst light. So there's my take.
Very nice. I like your explanations as well. It doesn't you don't have to physically resemble this person. It can just be more personality based.
I know, but Dan, they're also beautiful.
That's true.
I would definitely hope to come off as Tepu. I'm just kidding. No. Sorry.
Who did you say?
Tap.
Oh, Tap.
Oh no.
Sorry, that went down terribly. I would probably want Guy's experience, Guy from Hawaii, because he seemed at the most sure of himself on the show. Like, he was there to have fun, but to also, like, everyone joins the show to promote something, or there's always some motive, but he wasn't unclear about that. He was very clear about that, and he was able to have a good time while being on the show. So that is my ideal.
What about your worst case scenario?
Oh, okay. There's so many to choose from, but I would probably hate to come off as the chef from Boys and Girls, Hayato. First of all, he was really old. And spoiler alert, please turn this off if you haven't seen Boys and Girls in the City. But he was hooking up with this little girl on the side and then lying about it and then embarrassed in front of the world. So I would hate to be that guy.
True. He is a true creep. Sally, what about you?
I think in the best light, I would have loved to come. One of my favorite people from all of Terrace House history is Minori, just because I felt like, yeah, like she was a model and a student, but like she knew how to like go through conflict and kind of like work through, just relationships with people. And she just seemed like kind of like chill. She's not too crazy, not too intense. Yes, but I realized that I probably in real life would have come off like Hana in this current season, because I feel like she's trying to play it cool and just be like free spirited and stuff, but she can't help but like wear her emotions on her sleeve, and like even when she's like, I know I'll be good, I'm cool with it, I'm cool with everything, and then you see her crying in a Panda like nightgown, and it's like you could cry in the bathroom if you really wanted to, like, not make a scene of it, but it's like she just can't help it, like she's so emotionally like heavy, and I think I am like that too, so I probably would have come off like that. Maybe wearing a bunny like a nightgown instead of a panda.
Very nice. Awesome. I think for me, my best case scenario, or how I would want to come off as, would be like a fusion of Pepe and Yuki Burns. Just very empathetic guys, very encouraging. They seem like glue guys, but also knew how to have fun. Like people loved being around them. Also very attentive and thoughtful for both of them, whether it was romantically or just with their friends, right? Worst case would be a fusion too. A fusion of Kenny from Spicy Soul, Taishi from Aloha State, because he was way too much, too extra, and I think Tap as well. Actually, no, I changed the last one to Shohei from this season because I feel like he was a little too self-important sometimes, and like his philosophies on life just didn't make any sense, but he tried to make sure that people knew this is my philosophy and I won't listen to yours. So that would be my bad combo. Kenny from Spicy Soul, because he's kind of a deadbeat a little aloof, deadbeat, very creative guy though, right? His music's actually pretty good, but on the show he came off as just like, why are you here? Taishi and Shohei. So there is my answer. Cool. Good job, everybody. All right. So before we dive into our recap of week 28, just wanted to remind you guys that you can find this podcast on the Apple Podcast iTunes app, where we would really appreciate a 5-star rating and review. You can also find us on Spotify and Anchor. In terms of our socials, please follow us on Twitter at Terrace Heart Pod. Instagram and YouTube are both Terrace Up My Heart. Okay, week 28, Starving for Affection. I'll just give the quick big highlights of this episode, and then we can run through our episode awards. So first, Kai consoles Hana in 1F Playroom. Rio and Vivi go into flirting overdrive on the couch while this is happening. Tupas asks Emika out and gets his own shy boy flirty game on. We get some scenes between Tupas and Lily Frank that show us more of their relationship. Vivi actually confronts Hana about Rio and admits that she saw her crying in the kitchen, and Hana assures Vivi that she holds no animosity towards her. It's more of an internal struggle that she's fighting with. Tupas gets drunk AF and expresses some of his loneliness to Kai before getting even drunker at the dining table by himself, where Vivi and Hana find him there. And we get this intense interaction between Vivi and Tupas, where Tupas just kind of off the cuff starts spilling his guts and philosophies on life, and Vivi, like a boss, sets him straight. We end the episode with a sobered up Tupas acting more like his normal caring self, cleaning the house as Emika comes down to help him. And they both share this moment at the very end where Tupas reveals straight out that he's interested in her, and both of them share a moment where they're blushy, bashful, and overcome by happy butterfly feelings. So that is the gist of our episode. Does anybody have any just general overarching things that stood out to them that they want to point out that don't necessarily fit into any one of the categories? For me, I thought this was a jam-packed episode like that had a lot of different emotions and a lot of things happening. There were a bunch of characters that kind of stepped up. It was kind of hard for me to, pick one character for any of these categories. But Lucy, what did you think of this episode, and were there any points that you want to just throw out there, any small observations or anything?
Nothing small, but this general impression is Vivi's therapy session with Tupas was probably one of the GOAT Terrace House moments of all time, and we can delve into that later, but this was this was that for me. I think when I watched it for the first time, I was dead. I was like, this is amazing. She really spoke into his life in a real way, but we can get into it later.
That was one of those altar call moments where someone prays for you and then you just start weeping. Anyways, Dan, what about you?
I gotta agree that conversation I still think about today. Not on a daily basis, but just in terms of it's a pretty deep talk that they had, and I can't wait to dive into that.
Sally, did anything stand out to you?
I think this episode for me, just emotionally, I was all over the place, and I think it just ties into you calling it a jam-packed episode. And I don't want to give anything away, but let's just say I was an emotional mess with each.
Gotcha. Okay, so I have some small observations that I wanted to point out. So I wanted to give some MVP points to Hana's panda suit again, because there is this moment where she takes Kai to the playroom where she realizes, oh shoot, Rio and Vivi are still there, and she shows the versatility of the panda suit by taking the hood and putting it and hiding her tears, and I was like, what a baller move. I did not know the panda suit could do that. So some MVP points thrown the panda suit's way.
Very nice.
Next observation, that Tupas scene with Lily Frank, is anybody going to talk about that?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll leave it. We'll save that.
Yeah.
Okay, my last observation I wanted to say is that I felt like it was really cool to see the contrasting chemistry between Rio and Vivi with Emika and Tupas, because they're totally different couples, but I liked the pacing of how they were different. Where Rio and Vivi are just so dynamic and they jump off the page, but Emika and Tupas are just way more subtle, but they also understand each other in that very silent way, and they're a little bit more milder, but in both senses it's endearing. Lastly, I'm gonna title this episode, I like to come up with punny titles. Episode title for this will be A Patos on the Back.
It's the last episode. They call him patos. There's this thing of how the Japanese panelists and the Japanese culture tends to pick on foreigners. But, yeah, hilarious.
That's a good one.
Okay, here we go. Okay, so let's dive in then to our awards. Let's start with highlight of the night. Lucy, let's start off with you.
Yeah, I already brought it up, but we can delve into it more, but it's Vivi affirming Tupas in his moment of self-doubt. So I think how it went was Tupas's argument is that he's never been loved, so he doesn't know how to love. And then Vivi's argument is you have to learn how to love yourself before you can love others. And so they go back and forth on that for a while, and ultimately hit the nail on the head was she then points out to him that he does know how to love because he's been serving the house, cleaning up and everything. And so I just think that everything she said, I mean, you can agree, both sides had good points, right? Like, you do need to have been loved in order to love. But I think ultimately Vivi was able to speak into his life and actually change his mind about how he saw himself. And that's where the altar call crying part comes in, where he actually, you see him visibly just breaking down because he realized that what she said is true. Like, I do know how to love. And I think, I can extend that, at least what I know, to other people. So that was like mind blowing for me. And even watching it again, like, it still resounded in different ways. Yeah,
and minor observation that I made too was that Hana was on the side listening as well. And I felt she was taking in a lot too, because at first I thought she was agreeing with everything Tupas was saying. And then Vivi would say something and she's like, oh yeah, I guess that's true as well. So Hana got a quick lesson as well. So Dan, what about you? Highlight of the night?
In terms of like my heart racing the fastest, it was probably Yama-chan apologizing about the rice. So if we're gonna call it highlight, that was probably my highlight. I thought.
Can you explain really quickly?
Sure. There's like this quick cut scene of this was after Ryo and Vivi were flirting, and Ryo goes up and then he's in his bedroom checking his own name. and then it gets to Vivi washing rice, and then Yama-chan like alludes to that being very sexual, and the whole panel explodes. And I just thought, that goes to show the strength of the chemistry in the panel. And I just loved the whole sequence.
Very nice. Sally, what about you? Highlight of the night?
The highlight of the night for me was when Emika and Hana are preparing like breakfast or lunch in the kitchen, and Tupas is just like sitting there watching them, and then he like slowly but surely ends up asking her out on a date while he sees her preparing food, asking her if she wants to go eat. And like that like turnaround of like, because it's just showing the back of Emika, and then right when he asks her and she turns around, she has like this like smile that even for me I was like, oh my gosh, like go on the date. Like, I think that emotion was so like, it's so real. I was like, yes, that was my highlight. And then their whole date was so cute. I really liked it.
Sally, I'm so glad you said that. 100%, that was my highlight of the night, the lunch-breakfast interaction with Tupas and Emika, because I thought it was super adorable, and it felt like a scene out of like a romantic comedy. It was picture-perfect Korean drama rom-com. Even their little smiles and reactions to each other were perfectly timed. And to prove it, I actually have that scene pulled up, so we're all going to watch it together on my... if I can get it to, let's see. Oh.
There it is.
I totally went over my head.
He's like does that fist pump or something.
Yeah, he's like, that's great timing. Cute, yeah, it was really cute. So I totally picked up on that as well. And the sunlight was hitting her hair very perfectly. She like licks her fingers and smiles, and that whole scene was it was awesome. And even Tupas grinning. And then I think at the end he's like, I hope I didn't overstep. Thanks for letting me take her out to Hana. And she's like, why are you even asking me this? So everything was very cute. So that was my highlight of the night as well, Tupas and Emika. Okay, let's move on to MVP of the episode, who for better or for worse made their presence most felt. This is kind of tough for me, but Lucy, I'm guessing I'll let you go. Who's your MVP?
Well, I had two, but I feel like I give Vivi so many MVP awards that for this one, and I think the episode title is based on him as well, so I'll give it to Tupas because he did, I think that episode followed his arc the most, right? Like he had a date with Emika, he had that Lily Frankie event, conversation with Kai, and also with Vivi. Just like full circle, the entire episode was focused around him, so that's my MVP.
Nice.
Yeah.
Dan?
Mine has to be the panda suit. You stole my flair.
Oh, did I? My bad.
No, don't be sorry. Because Vivi and Tupas are having this like life shattering conversation, and it just cuts to like a wide shot, and there's this panda in. There's just this panda there, and I totally forgot Hana was there until I rewatched it for this podcast. And I was like, wow, go panda suit. And like you mentioned, the multifunctional use of the panda suit. So that's my MVP.
That's awesome. Sally?
My MVP of the episode was Kai. I felt like from the beginning of the episode, he was there helping Hana in the playroom, just kind of like sort her thoughts and kind of encourage her, that like her Rio isn't like everything, and to like kind of think of, what the conclusion she came to, which is like bettering herself and growing in this journey of figuring out her emotions. To the end, when he is talking to Tupas, like as he first comes back from his round 1 drinking. So I just felt like Kai was a quiet but like a very important person in both Hana and Tupas reaching like moments of just kind of getting these thoughts like going, and then later I guess talking to Vivi for both of them. But yeah.
Oh, good observation. Nice. Yeah, I had a really tough time between Vivi and Tupas here. Like, I literally had to do a column and put, like, the pros on each side because Vivi was so good. Her flirtation game was so strong.
It was, yeah.
And her Dr. Filling and Oprahing of Tupas was incredible. Obviously, her, like, versatility was on full display. And not to mention that she confronted Hana about, hey, I saw you crying. Are you okay? I thought that was very cool on her part to even do that. But I think the way that I describe it, I think at the end of the day, I give it to Tupas for the same reasons Lucy said. I would say Vivi maybe had the game-winning shot or maybe the clutch plays at the end of the game, but Tupas was more consistent from beginning to end. And like Lucy said, you kind of got the full story arc. We saw a lot out of him that we did not expect, including the fact that he has some game in him, even though it's kind of meek and shy. The way that he was able to sort of like touch Emika and affect her in those small ways was really cool. And even though he was super drunk, he even got his own redemption at the end of the episode where he's cleaning the house, and then he has that convo with Emika where he steps up and actually reveals his feelings. So you kind of got the full spectrum of Tupas in one episode, which was really cool. So I think, that is why Tupas is my MVP. I think he expressed himself very well at the end of the day. So let's move on to most improved player. This is a cast member who you saw grow in this episode or in episodes prior. Lucy, who's your most improved player of the episode?
I think for me it would be Hana this episode, and I think I drew it most from her conversation with Vivi. I think Vivi went a little overboard with kind of like sharing how much she liked Rio. And Hana kind of took it in stride. She, when at the end of the conversation, Vivi was like, oh man, like it sucks that he's never home. I feel ambivalent or whatever. And then Hana was like, oh, like actually comforting Vivi, like, oh, I hope you're not feeling ambivalent for my sake. Like, just feel what you need to feel and whatever. So it was very mature of her, I felt. For someone who wears her emotions on her sleeves, she kept it pretty, tight for that.
And wears a panda suit over her eyes.
Yeah. I think the panda suit gave her the powers,
Right.
Yeah.
It made her stronger.
Good point. Dan, what about you? Most improved player?
I'm gonna give this to Emika. She started off her story arc so poorly that, this is, I'm starting to feel the ascent of her character arc here. And like, I appreciated her vulnerability with Patos, and I thought the date was great, and she's becoming likable. I thought, wow, this is the first episode where, like, she's a likable character or person, not a character. And I think it's fascinating that in Topas's conversation with Lily Frank, they're talking about their social media as an image and how that's what they bond over is like not caring, like, or that they aren't what they, you know, that people perceive them to be, and that they bond over that. And so I think that's a very interesting topic moving forward.
Nice. Sally, what about you? Most improved player?
I also put Hana for that exact same reason that Lucy did. Just like, yeah, being able to not be like petty and like shoot back something to Vivi in her like sharing her emotions and stuff, but just, yeah, like Lucy said, comforting her. I was like, I don't know if I could do that, but it's the panda suit.
Very nice. I think for me, my most improved player is Kai. I feel like we got another side of him, like this very consoling mediator side. And I thought he was a great listener. I think being a great listener is a difficult thing to achieve. And he just kind of heard her out, let her spill her heart out. And even the advice he gave was pretty sound. So he said some really nice things to encourage her and affirm her, including like something about, you know, someone will appreciate the uniqueness of who you are eventually and will come to love those things, so you don't necessarily even need to worry about you feeling inferior in all these ways to Vivi, because someone will love you for like who you are. So yeah, I give it up to Kai for kind of showing some of his substance there and really being able to, you know, kind of calm Hana down and even lift her up as well. So good on Kai. In this episode, he just seems like a very like upstanding human being who, you know, just knows how to mediate for other people. So Kai is my most improved player. Nice. What about defensive player of the game? This is a cock block or somebody who kills the romantic mood, etc., etc. Lucy, what about you?
I guess if you're following the previous episode of Vivi and Kai's date, that maybe she didn't even want to go on, Rio would be then the defensive player for in that situation, because when he was talking to Vivi on the couch, I think he was saying like, oh, how was your date? Or was it a date? Or was it just platonic between friends? And she was like, yeah, it was just platonic. And he kind of like played it off as, oh yeah, that day was like platonic, and then proceeded to flirt with her. So, you know, if you're like rooting for Vivi and Kai, which I thought they had really good chemistry, like if Rio wasn't there, I feel like they really would have hit it off and maybe had something further. I mean, I watched, and to add context, I watched like their random Instagram little stories here and there with Kai and Vivi, and they always seem to be having fun together. So I don't know, maybe a different timeline of this situation they would have gotten together. Yeah.
Nice. Good context. Dan, what about you?
I agree with, I have Rio down here. I think like Vivi, we were talking about this last night. Like, should I save this for you? Do you want to talk about it? The bra strap?
Oh, you can.
Okay. So Sally rewatched the episode yesterday, and we went on a walk, and she was talking about Vivi like showing so much shoulder like on the couch with Rio, and I was like, I don't remember this. I don't remember her doing like being that aggressive. And on my rewatch today, I was like, wow, she really was doing that on purpose. And so my defensive player is Rio, because he doesn't have a clue. Like, he is so not smooth. Like, she's so obviously like flirting with him, even to the mentioning the necklace. And he's just like, I don't know, like, I don't know. Come on, Rio. Like, you got to step your game up. Like, yeah. So
I guess he could have done more.
Exactly. And he like, you could feel the arms of like defense coming up. Like, he's just like, I don't know, like pushing her away, and not a fan. But let's go. Let's move on to Sally.
He was his own worst enemy. Sally, what about you for defensive player of the episode?
The defensive player I noticed on this episode was Lily Frank when he's talking to Tupas.
Nice.
And he's asking about Emika, you know, and then he starts kind of just like from his observation saying like, oh, you better be careful, like she seems like she's ambitious, she like wants these big dreams, and you know, oh look, she's wearing this bikini on the beach and she's smiling, like she's not, like, you know, kind of like warning him like, be careful of what you think she is. But then Tupas goes on to say like, no, that's not who she is, I know her and I've grown to know that she's not like that. I was like, yeah.
As he zooms into her chest area. Jesus, come on, Lily Frank. Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, man. That's awesome because I also put Lily Frank for my defensive player of the episode. I felt like he kind of tried to incept Tupas there, talking about how he's going down a slippery slope by chasing something from his youth, because Tupas mentioned, like, I feel like I missed out on this part of my, like, childhood, or when I was a young teenager in high school. Like, I never got to chase this type of girl, never got to drive this type of car, and now I'm getting this opportunity. And Lily Frank is just like, I don't know, you keep going down this slope and it might bite you at the end of the day. And I'm kind of wondering if that's why Tupas started drinking by himself after, you know, his job with Lily Frank, because Lily Frank just started like incepting him with all these thoughts, and maybe he had to think about that. And I think in this episode we realize how deep Tupas is in the first place, because I think when he's talking with Kai, he mentions, I don't know if I actually like this girl, or I'm in love with this girl, or if I just am enthralled by the idea of befriending someone this popular. And I was like, wow, that's very self-aware of you to be thinking, you know, that way. And so it wouldn't surprise me at all if whatever Lily Frank was saying, Tupas was like, oh, shoot, he's right. Do I have to start thinking about all of these things all of a sudden? And now I'm just going to drink myself to oblivion, which is kind of what he did. So for sure, Lily Frank tried his best, but I'm glad Tupas rebounded at the end of the episode there and still went for it. So
that's a great point, because doesn't Tupas also mention how he views Lily Frank like a father figure? So like he really must have put him in a bad mood to start drinking and, like, you know, being a sad boy. I would have never considered that.
Yeah, and it also makes you wonder like what Lily Frankie really thinks of Tupas. Like, despite what Tupas thinks of him, maybe just these undercutting comments, like, I don't know if he respects him in that way either. I don't know. Something to think about.
Should we get racial again? No, I'm just kidding.
Maybe.
I mean...
Might as well.
It's there.
Did he pick Tupas to be the perfect servant because Tupas is Southeast Asian and that's what Filipinos kind of do? I don't know. With that said, we're going to take it to break. cool off a little bit, and then we'll finish off with the rest of our awards. Cool. Sweet. All right. So we are back, and we are going to move on to favorite quote of the episode. Dan, you wanted to start this off, so give us your quote of the episode.
My favorite quote was, I don't have it in front of me, but it's when they encourage Tupas to drink more because they want to see more they want to see him make a fool of himself more. And I know they're joking, but there's that racial tinge again. He's just entertainment to these guys. I'll just leave it there.
The Honeysour beers, as they call it. Sally, what about you for your favorite quote of the episode?
My favorite quote was, I love Ponzu. I love Ponzu. I was like, oh my god, Vivi, keep it together. Ponzu sauce is not that good.
That's good.
But yeah, I think when she did that, my face was like, oh man. Like,
that's really funny. Lucy, what about you for your favorite quote of the episode?
My favorite quote is, Russia is undefeatable.
Nice.
And I mean, tying it back to race, if you want, I guess she's the superior race of this whole situation.
Oh man, that's so funny. Sorry, can we hit pause here real quick and just, since people are bringing up the couch scene, was it too much for you guys, the flirtation between the two? Did you like it? Did you find it endearing? Yeah.
Okay, I've thoughts on this. I think Vivi knew exactly what she was doing with her showing off skin to Rio, but then I thought she was also doing it to up her Q score in Japan. Like, she was obviously playing to the camera. And unfortunately, Rio didn't have a clue. So that's why I think I appreciate Vivi as a character, because she knows how to be fun. She knows how to be a good character on the show as well as have fun with it. So like, she's catering to the audience, but she's also able to. She's like self-aware enough to have fun on her own. But yes, I think it was kind of over the top.
So Sally, was it cringeworthy for you, the interaction between the two?
Yeah, I think just like for me, right off the bat, I noticed the shoulder and I was just like, girlfriend. And then like throughout their whole conversation, her eyes are just like crazy eyes. Like yeah, and like me, and like it's just like, you don't have to talk like this, like you can just talk normally, you know. So I think it was just like too much like excitement, too much like, you know, energy she was emitting, that like, yeah, it was very hard for me to watch without feeling cringy.
That's fair, and that may come up later for our most cringeworthy award. I would say I thought it was this whole interaction in the couch was over the top, extra, very corny. But I've also come to realize, at least for me, philosophically, it ain't real if it's not corny at some point, right? Especially at the start. Yeah. And I think it was so corny that I knew it was real, because they could not contain themselves even in front of the camera. They could not compose themselves. They did not come off as cool at all. So for me, I was like, okay, these two must really like each other right now, even though it's hard to watch. So Lucy, do you have anything to say about the couch interaction?
I think when I first watched it, the very first time, I didn't think it was cringy at all. And I think I was just relieved to finally see Rio hit it off with someone, because he was such an eligible, you know, bachelor or whatever. And like, I think it just didn't feel right with all of the previous girls. So I was excited that finally he had good chemistry with someone. Nice. But upon second watch, yeah, it was really over the top. Like whatever I felt the first time, like watching Vivi the second time, it just, because I guess I scrutinized her more, it just felt like she really tried way too hard. And sometimes, you know, back to like when Sena was giving Mayu advice on that other season, she said like, you know, sometimes guys like the chase, right? Like you don't want to put so much of yourself out there. You kind of want to let them chase you. And in this instance, maybe Vivi just went too much overboard.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, like I said, I know it's real because it's corny, but there was like 0 ounce of like witty banter between the two. Like the necklace thing with the first letter of the name. I was like, did we devolve to like elementary school? What happened? Which is why I think Emeka and Tupas' interaction was cuter and more endearing. So, all right. My favorite quote of the episode would be, "How could rinsing rice be so erotic?" by Yamachan, which goes back to Dan's point about the milky water and him having to apologize to rice farmers everywhere. But to finish this favorite quote of the episode out, I also have verbatim what Vivi said to Tupas, so I'll just read it really quickly. So she tells Tupas, "How long are you going to wait for someone to show you love? You have to create it for yourself. You can't change other people. Even if you find someone you love, if they don't reciprocate, then what's that going to do? Your security is then at the whim of whether someone loves you or not. I don't want that. You have to be courageous and proactive in finding love within ourselves. Or we have to be courageous and proactive in finding love within ourselves. Hoping love will come and feeling dejected when it doesn't is lame. You're a good person and I know you're resilient. Please don't talk about yourself in such a sad way. Never been loved, so you don't know how to love? Of course you do. First thing you do when you wake up is come in here, clean, and do the dishes. You show kindness to other people. Stop lying about yourself." So there is Vivi's game-winning shot of the episode. Hits you right here. So good job, Vivi. Okay, so let us now move on to favorite panel take of the episode. Lucy, what's your favorite panel take of the episode?
I think they were kind of looking at Vivi and Rio getting along, and they were thinking about how it must feel for Hana. And I think to Hana, like, her personal growth meant that she should keep trying to pursue Rio. But then the panelists had a different take that, like, letting go is also a big part of growth. So I like that their take on that, because I think in this instance it's true. Like, I feel like Hana maybe is at the end of her rope with this infatuation. Maybe letting go would have been a better part of her growth than to keep pursuing Rio with no, like, reciprocation. So yeah,
that's a good point. And I watched back on Kai's conversation with Hana, and at first I did not agree with his advice, because he was like, oh, keep going for it, and just tell him how you feel. But after watching it like a third time, I realized that I think he was just trying to get her to go back to Rio and actually be more firm in what she was saying, so that Rio could formally reject her, because so far he hasn't. And Kai was like, maybe that'll be a good growth for you, even just getting rejected. And so looking back on it, I'm like, actually, maybe Kai was doing the right thing, even though he's kind of prodding her on. I think he was doing it more so that she could experience, like, let me just get a definitive answer from this guy and definitively get rejected. And once that happens, then I can start the process of letting go, versus like, okay, I kind of know that he's not interested, but it's always better to get the actual, like, hey, straight up, I'm not interested. So just something I wanted to bring up. Dan, what about you for your favorite panel take of the episode?
It wasn't really a take, but I thought it was interesting how they mentioned Vivi might be showing too strong of a hand to Rio. And you touched on this earlier. Perhaps guys do like the chase. Like, they want to be the one pursuing, because you can also see a parallel in that with Hana and Rio, because ultimately, like, he goes with Vivi, who's just coming off stronger, but like that might not necessarily be the correct approach either, like I wonder if he feels as a guy like, no, wait, I should be doing this, especially in front of, like, the world, right? And so I don't know, that just kind of stuck in my head.
Nice. Sally, what about you?
My favorite panel take had nothing to do with, like, moving my soul. It was just funny. I think rewatching this episode, I was reminded that, I think because Daniel just had no clue about Vivi's, like, strong moves and their flirting scenes of, like, her, like, showing her shoulder. I felt so affirmed rewatching it, like, of, like, all the panelists just, like, kind of taking it too over the top with, like, like, oh, her bra basically came undone, like, with her inhibitions and, like, like, all this stuff, like, like, the very sexual puns and stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, I don't remember, like, them saying this when I watched it, like,
Me too, actually.
back then. But then I was like, yeah, like, I felt affirmed by them. It's like
Very nice. Glad we could hash that out on this podcast episode. I think my favorite panel take was when the panelists were just joking about how Vivi and Rio were serving up, like, a master class in flirtation, and how it was, and someone said it's less about masters, but just chemistry being there, and that they were kind of effortless and so in sync to the point where they don't even need to confess their feelings. And I think someone said they've docked. It was practically sex. So I thought that was hilarious, and that's where the Milky Water stuff comes in. So that's my favorite panel take of the episode. All right, so I think we're on to our last episode award, and that would be the Shacked in a Fool Most Cringeworthy Moment. Lucy, what is your most cringeworthy moment of the episode?
Yeah, back to Lily Frank. I think that whole scene was very, I don't know, whenever they're in a scene together, now I'm just predisposed to, like, cringe, but when Tupas, like, trying to fix that water boiler for the longest time ever. And Lily Frank's like, I don't know if that's how that's supposed to work. And then thereafter, Lily Frankie brings up like, oh, a bikini photo again. So it's like that first conversation in the car was not a fluke. Like, he's definitely a creep, you know? Like, he definitely just wants to see girls like half naked or whatever. So not a fan, and not looking forward to future scenes with him, if any.
Nice. So just to touch on that scene with the water dispenser, here's my conspiracy theory. And it's going to be racial again. I think the Terrace House producers planted this dysfunctional dispenser that's rarer than other water dispensers to make Tupas look stupid. They set him up, fam. He was just like playing around with it, didn't know how to use it, and Lily Frank just very monotonously goes, I don't think that's the part you want to push. So I was like, come on, man, making Tupas look stupid. How sad. And Dan, remember how we were talking about 2 episodes ago when they first introduced Tupas, how come Yama-chan just all of a sudden started talking about how this guy was going to screw up everything?
Yeah.
You mentioned before that you think the panelists actually watch episodes in advance to give them context.
Right.
This might be one of those instances where, okay, all jokes aside, they probably didn't set him up, but they may have seen this one scene and they were like, this guy's a screw up, so let me mention it out of context in his introductory episode. So that's my take on just setting Tupas up again. So what were we doing again? Cringeworthy moment. Zan, what was your favorite cringeworthy moment of the episode?
I actually okay, I got 2. I'll go through them really quick. I thought Rio doing the hair flip thing was so I was like, man. And then him doing it twice, I was like, Jesus, like, can we 1.5 speed through this? Like, but secondly, I thought when Tupas was talking about how he needs to receive love, like, I don't know, something about that whole interaction was very uncomfortable for me, because at first on my first watch, I remember siding with Tupas, because from his perspective, everyone has stuff like in their history, and everyone didn't choose the families they grew up in. And I was thinking, I wonder how it must be hearing the advice coming from Vivi, who's this, beautiful German blonde girl, telling me, no, you need to love yourself. Of course, that's easy if you're Vivi, right? And so I don't know, that whole thing, that whole interaction, I thought was kind of cringy for me, but I loved it. I mean, that's what makes Terrace House so great.
Was it also racial for you, Dan?
No.
Russia, undefeatable.
It's not so much it's not a race thing. It's just more of what's the homogeneous?
Nature versus nurture.
Japan just looks out for their own. They're very, protective of their own culture. So.
Yeah, good points. And also, I knew for sure that Tupas was super, super drunk. I was almost like, I hope the production crew's like looking out for this dude, because he's just like at the table by himself. Like, how many drinks has he had? Anyways, Sally, what was your Shacked in a Fool most cringeworthy moment of the episode?
Well, I think it's tied with the Vivi Rio convo with the necklaces, and then like Rio being like, oh yeah, maybe I should get a J, for Japan or whatever. And she's like, no, J for Japan. Get a V. And I was like, oh, like this is so bad. And then that's also tied to the Tupas and Lily Frankie like conversation where he like, it's Amika's face, and then he goes like zoom like all the way into it's like so this bad. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's so like no. Those are both like so bad.
Very nice. I think my most cringeworthy moment also was kind of tied with the Rio hair wipe, and I want to know if people actually saw that live, because I think she posted it on her Instagram or something, right? So that would have been interesting to see that come about when it came about. And then also Tupas unable to get the water out of the dispenser. I was just like, oh man, this scene, even though it was 3 seconds, feels like 2 minutes to me. I felt that way in certain situations where I didn't know how to, use a pencil sharpener or something like, you're just fidgeting around. So, that was my most cringeworthy moment. With that said, I think that does it for our episode and our episode awards. Does anybody have any last things they want to bring up that wasn't mentioned? Open floor.
Sure. I'll go really quick. I think it's interesting. I think I'm pretty introverted as a person, and I relate more with Emika and Topas's path versus Rio and Vivi's. And I think it's great job producers. Like, it's great that they're contrasting the two, and I actually think Emika and Topas's is more believable and real versus Rio and Vivi. So I love that contrast.
Yeah, I agree. And they went to get Korean barbecue, and I think I was surprised by the fact that Tupas like knows how to flirt, because he just kept saying how I can't believe like I saw you walk down and you had no makeup on, and I was like, whoa, you know, like I would probably give him most improved player of the episode for this episode as well. But any other things you guys want to bring up, Lucy, Sally?
I like the editing when Hana was confiding in Kai, and then like Vivi and Rio on the couch, like they edited those conversations back and forth. I don't know, it was nice, like because Hana was like expressing her insecurity, and then in real time you saw Vivi like actually flirting with Rio. It was just like it really confirmed like what she was saying to Kai in another room. So it was nice, like layering for that.
Agree. Sally?
I just want to give another shout out to the Tupas Emika couple and how he got Emika yogurt at the end of the episode. He was like, oh, I heard you weren't feeling well, like this is for you. And she's like, oh, thank you. And he's like, yeah, I heard it's supposed to help with hangovers. And she's like, oh, really? And he's like, I mean, like Google says so. I was like, you're smart, man.
Google's always right.
Yep.
He also forgot to mention, also, I was very hungover this morning because I was drinking a lot last night.
So it's really for myself also.
Yeah, and he also had that cute interaction with her where he took the Polaroid and took a snap of her, and she's like, oh, I didn't think you'd do it. And he's like, you look great or whatever. So I feel like Tupas has this very... you guys know Mr. Darcy from Pride and Prejudice? Like, very mysterious, dark, brooding demeanor about him. But once you get to know him more, actually, it's kind of like the prototypical Korean drama guy, right? Where you like don't know if he has any personality or if he has any depth to him. But once you dig a little deeper, you're like, oh, okay, this guy knows how to say this, and this, knows how to express himself, and is kind of cute in a unintentional way sometimes, So I agree with all of those things. Cool. I think that's it. Thanks, Sally, for joining us. You're free and welcome to always join us whenever you feel like it.
More.
That was fun. Me. Very good insights. We paired up on a lot of them, actually. So good observations. And yeah, that is Terrace Up My Heart. I think this is episode 5. 5? Yes. Week 28. Right? Yeah, Week 28. What is the episode title called? Starving for Affection, or AKA a patos on the back. So thank you guys for listening. Catch us on all our socials. Check out Run River North. We've got 2/3 of the band on here today. Woo woo. And yeah, that'll do it for us. Dan, Sally, thank you for hopping on. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Sweet. That was fun.
We ain't got no money, but we got lots of time. So let's spend a little, live a little, 'cause every day the sun will rise.
Wake up!
Come smell the roses, oh, come take your time.